Welcome, genre fans! In this episode, we apply folk horror's 3 thematic tendencies to films from countries in Asia, with a focus on colonial and imperialist legacies, the Colonial Gothic. The films we're discussing originate in folklore or contain strong folk horror imagery and elements, even if they are actually Gothic horror, supernatural horror, or another genre. Let's get into it. South Asian film, especially in India under the British Raj, presents a dialectic between 2 historical tendencies. The first is the quote-unquote civilizing project of the British, who sought to instill their so-called cultural supremacy in language, literature, and everyday life. The second pertains to indigenous, regional, and site-specific genres, such as mythologicals and devotionals, which often had internal critiques of colonial rule designed to bypass censorship laws. Filmmakers worked within discursive parameters that met the civilizational standards of their oppressors while maintaining viability for indigenous audiences. Literary tropes from the British canon strongly influenced the initial wave of horror on the Indian subcontinent in a genre we term the Colonial Gothic. Arched Gothic mansions from British literature, like Castle Udolpho in Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho, the eponymous Northanger Abbey in Jane Austen's novel, or Thornfield Hall in Jane Eyre, entrap the suffering heroine. In this confined space, she finds herself pitted against a dastardly villain with a mysterious backstory, plunging her into an atmosphere of heightened physical and psychological terror that is almost supernatural in tone. Regardless of genre, most classic Indian cinema consists of love stories. Horror films gravitated towards the Gothic because the mixture of romantic intrigue and supernatural elements allowed them to maintain the market popularity of love stories. 2 Hindi films, Mahal and Madhumati, are precursors to later Indian folk horror. They deploy Gothic tropes, restructuring their narratives with the Hindu concept of reincarnation. Mahal tells the story of a young man named Hari who purchases a beautiful abandoned palace in Allahabad. In his new abode, Hari is immediately haunted by a beautiful ghost named Kamini and comes to believe that they were lovers in a past life when he sees his exact likeness in a picture of the palace's previous owner. Hari becomes obsessed with the unfinished business of his previous life, returning again and again to the mansion, even after marrying another woman. Madhumati deploys a similar reincarnation narrative in a rural setting on the outskirts of Calcutta. On a stormy night, engineer Devon finds himself stranded in an old mansion where he recognizes a villainous face in a portrait. As it turns out, he had drawn the portrait in a previous life and recalls this past incarnation of himself. He is Anand, the manager of a logging company who loves drawing and falls in love with a peasant girl named Madhumati. Madhumati dies at the hands of the evil landowner from the portrait and returns as a ghost to haunt the mansion. After remembering this incarnation of himself, Devon realizes that he has been gifted in his present incarnation and rushes to his wife and newborn. Recent folk horror shows a re-examination of the colonial era with period pieces that use the Gothic haunted house setting. Set in the Sundarban jungle of West Bengal in 1913, the Palace of Horrors segment in the anthology film The Field Guide to Evil tells the story of Gentry, an agent for the American Circus Corporation who purchases Bengal tigers and freaks for the Ringling Brothers. He is arrogant, dismissing repeated warnings from both locals and his guide as mere native superstition. Gentry breaks into the castle of a mythic deranged king who has a collection of freaks, heedlessly exploring a hidden room containing a mythic force. The Palace of Horrors follows the old ways remain thematic tendency. The force in the room is real, and Gentry pays with his sight and his life. Though lacking in romantic intrigue, the segment uses plenty of Gothic tropes, especially with the jungle castle, bookending its narrative with still photographs of the time to drive home the theme of imperialist plunder. And that's our exploration of the Colonial Gothic and folk horror from Asian countries. For part 2, we'll be continuing with a more old ways remain tendency, tales of demons, curses, and spirits. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and select all so you can know first thing when we post. Don't forget to let your film nerd friends know about our channel. Comment with your favorite Asian folk horror movie, or tag us on Instagram or Twitter. Thanks! We'll see you soon.